Hey, what's up everybody? The Destroyer here. Today we'll be looking at all the controls and little features that Battlefield Earth 2 has and how to utilize them. Some what keys do what and how to utilize them in game, I guess. So, I have a long list of all the keys I could find that did stuff, and I looked up a few on the internet as well. There might be some I'm missing, some combinations or whatever, but this will basically be majority of the gist of it. So, let's get into it, shall we? Alright, the first thing we'll be looking at is the stop function. And by the way, all these keys that I'll be mentioning are on an English keyboard, so perhaps it might be different in some countries, but as an American keyboard, I have an English keyboard, so there you go. But that's what I'll be talking about. But anyway, the stop function is S. So, say the Nazguls are running around, you press S. They stop immediately. Very, very useful. Especially when you don't want to run into pikes, say, or something like that. You just hit stop, turn around. It can be more useful than doing this, because sometimes they'll do a wide turn or something. Sometimes you just want them to stop where they are. So that's a very useful function for that. That is the S key. Next, we'll be looking at attack move, or attack mode. So if you hit the A key, your cursor will turn into this red cursor, and then if you right-click, you guys will move to a selected area and attack its target. Attack anything on the way there. So that's very useful. I do that quite often, select my whole army and just attack move it somewhere. It's not pro-style kind of thing, but it's very useful for when you need to, say, send your army in, then you can go to your base and, say, build some orcs or what have you. So, that is attack move. Definitely good to get that one down. Next is select the entire army across the map, which is the Q key. So if I hit Q, it brings up my entire army. If I had more than just a few Nazguls, I should probably make some troops here, then it would pull up everyone. So I could send this guy off into the void or whatever, and I hit Q, everyone will get selected and I can bring them back, or like I said, hit attack move, and there you go. And they would do that. So that is select your whole army with Q. Alright, next we have the E key. If you select a unit and you press E, it will select every unit of the same type around that unit. So that could be useful if you want to get all of your, say, all of your archers or something that are near that archer battalion. That's a good way to do that. Also, there's another function of this. If you double tap E, it will select all across the map. So say I had some orcs. Actually, a good example would be I will double click E here, and that will select all my Nazgul across the map, which includes this one up here, even though he was not near. And if I just press it once, it will select these two, because he was near it, and this one will not be selected. So that's the function of the E key. Another thing you can do, which is very similar, is double left click on, say, a unit, and it will select all units of that type across the screen. So that's another way you can do that instead of hitting E. It's more or less the same thing. You just double left click and it'll select 2 orcs, 2 archers. If I had 5, it's like 5, whatever. Alright. Next we'll be looking at the H key. H is home, or goes to your fortress. So I could be across the map, and my base gets attacked. Instead of clicking on the map like so, I can just press H, back to my fort immediately. Quite useful for getting back to your base. Alright, next we'll look at X. X scatters your army. So, say somebody dropped an arrow volley down on my army. I need to move my army apart very quickly. How do I do so? You press X. X makes them all run apart, and that should negate majority of the casualties you'll take from arrow volleys or any kind of barrage thing, and it just splits your armies up, which can be useful for a lot of things. So that is the X key. Alright, next we'll be looking at the stances keys. So, normally you can get to your stances here. You have battle stance, which is your default stance. Then you can go to hold ground stance if you click this thing here, left click. Or you can go to aggressive stance. This is more tanky, you move slower. This is normal, and then you're more damage. You do more damage, but you take more damage. So, a good quick way to switch between these. D switches to damage, or battle, or aggressive stance. That's what it's called. F switches back to battle stance, and then G goes to hold ground stance. It is very good to keep in mind these 3 keys, as they will save a lot of your army sometimes if you can get into hold ground stance very quickly. while you guys are buffed. You may live through an arrow volley or something you normally wouldn't have because of that little extra armor boost it gives you. It can be very useful as well for stopping, because G also would stop everyone, just like S kind of does. It has multiple uses, but definitely good to memorize those. Alright, next up on the list is B. B selects your builder. And if you press it again, it'll select your next builder in line. So you can cycle through your builders by just typing B, and you'll get your builders. Very, very good, very useful key to keep in mind when you need to get your builders in a hurry. Alright, next we have the O key. Let's do that one. O selects your heroes, all your heroes. So you just press O, you'll have control of everyone down here, except for the builders, of course. It'll give you all the heroes under your control. And that's that. Quite useful. I use that all the time, and I definitely recommend you use that as well. Alright, the next one we'll be looking at is Control plus H. Not plus, you don't actually type it plus, but you hit Control and then you hit H. And if you keep doing it, it will cycle through your heroes. That's another way to get through your heroes. Maybe you don't want to hit O and get all your heroes, you can just press Control, or hold Control and hit H. Is it press? No. You have to hold Control and hit H. And you can cycle through your heroes like that. So that's pretty useful. Good thing to keep in mind as well. Next thing I'll be discussing is beacons. If you hold Control and press B, and then you left click on the ground, you will set a beacon on the ground. I can't do that in Skirmish, so I can't show you it, but it will place a shiny little beacon on the map as well, and your allies can see that. And also, to get rid of said beacons, if they don't despawn in your patch, like the older patches don't, if you left click the beacon and you press the delete key, which is next to insert and end and all that, it will delete your beacon. So that is a good thing to keep in mind as well, and very useful for alerting your allies to things in online play. Alright, next we have the grave key. You hit the grave key, which is the key next to your 1 right above your tab in the top left of your keyboard, or should be at least. That will bring up the PowerPoint menu, which is quite nice. And you can hit it again to close the PowerPoint menu. So it's a quick and easy way to, instead of clicking on this, I actually need to start using this myself. I always click this, but really this is super easy. So that's a good way to open your PowerPoint menu. Much more efficient than clicking on it, but teach their own, I guess. Okay, next we'll look at queuing up multiple units. So normally, if you just left click, you'll get 1 unit. If you left click a few more times, you'll get a few more units. If you right click, of course, you will cancel the units you queued. But if you hold shift and you left click, you now have queued 5 units. You can do it again if you hold shift, left click, you've queued 5 more, and you can do the alternate. Hold shift, left click, or right click rather, to cancel all those units 5 at a time. Very useful for massing amount of guys, and you don't want to click like 300 times. That's very handy. So I definitely recommend using that function. Alright, next we'll be looking at the delete key. The delete key, of course, next to the insert and end key I mentioned earlier. That is used for demolishing buildings. Normally you can go here and you can hit demolish building, and it will demolish building if you left click on it. But if you left click on your building and you just hit the delete key, your building falls apart. Very, very useful for quickly demolishing your building before an enemy destroys it and trying to get as much resources back from it as you can or what have you. It's a quicker way of doing it than clicking on it, definitely. So I definitely recommend utilizing that as well. Alright, next we'll look at building rally points. If you left click one of your production buildings and you right click somewhere, it will set a flag there, and that is where your units will go when they finish building or recruiting. And it does say in the top right, Orc Pit Rally Point Set. So that is very, very useful. Say you want to keep streaming at the enemy, you want the spam just keep going over there, then you just do that and they'll just keep doing that. Of course I should have utilized my my new technique in the shift. There you go. Alternatively, there's another function. If you hold shift and you select your production building and then you right click, it will select rally point for all of your production buildings, including your fortress. See, as you see, that has the flag there, it has the flag there now. So any building that produces troops will send their guys to this point. So that is very useful. I use that a lot actually when I want to go attack something. I will queue up a bunch of shit and it will just send it all to my enemy. And of course, that is pretty nice. So, there's that. Alright, well, we're on the topic of rally points. This is sort of rally point-ish, so I guess it fits. There is a function where if you hold Alt and you right-click where you want to go, they will go to that point, and then you click again, and it will queue up another point where they can go. And you can keep doing it, and they will follow this path until they stop. And of course, you can make them, say, attack that at the end of this thing. They'll do this crazy little circle, and then they'll go attack the cave troll at the end. So that is very useful. Say you want to harass, you could say send your Nazgul in around this way, or give somebody a safe passage to escape without going through enemy lines. Very, very useful feature. I only kind of recently learned of this feature, but it's very, very useful, and I've used it quite a bit to very good extent, I feel. It's very useful. So that would be the Alt plus right-click. There's another sort of waypoint-y feature as well, which is the Z key, or Z, if you're from somewhere other than America, of course. And that will bring up the planning mode, which looks weird. It looks intimidating, and at first I didn't know how to use it. But I will show you rather quickly how to do it. So, you just select your units you want, you tell them to do whatever, and it will set a, kind of like holding Alt. I think you can make a patrol route, actually. And if I do this, that will actually make a patrol route. So you can actually make patrol routes for your units. Alternatively, I could just have them go like this, and not have a end, and I think it'll just end here. So we'll hit execute. You can also delete action, of course, or cancel, but we'll hit execute and we'll see what they do. These guys should follow that patrol route indefinitely, and these guys should just go in a circle over here, if I'm not mistaken. I've never actually used this feature until just now, so bear with me. I'm learning as we go, but I kind of figured it out fairly easily. It's pretty simple. And of course the orcs in that patrol route will attack move on the way to anything they find in that patrol route. So it's an actual patrol route. They'll stop and attack enemies, and then if they kill the enemy, they'll go back on their patrol route, which is pretty neat. And that's actually a feature I'm looking forward to using in my future games. But that is the Z or Z key, the planning mode. Next, we'll be looking at unit formations. So, say I don't like the way my army is. They're not in formation, you know. So we'll select our army by, of course, dragging left click over them. And if you hold both of your mouse buttons down, it'll bring up this. And if you rotate your mouse, if you go sideways, if you circle it around, up and down, it will make different formations for your units to stand in. And this is very useful because a lot of times it'll put your archers in the back and your melee units in the front, and that's really what you want when you're going into combat anyway. And that's definitely helpful. And of course, sometimes it just looks cool as fuck to have all your units in formation. And then they'll march in that formation, which is nice. So that is, of course, holding both mouse buttons down and then rotating your mouse. Fairly straightforward, but very useful nonetheless. Okay, next we will look at a basic thing that's in all RTS games majority of the time, and that is setting unit groups. So if you select some units, if you hold control and you press a number like 1 or 2, but we'll go with 1 for this, and then you just click off them and you just press 1 by itself, that will bring up your unit group that you just made. So that's very useful. Say I want group 2 here and group 1 here. I can switch between the two fairly easily by pressing 1 and 2, and then I can go, say, attack with them, and then these guys can go like this, attack from this side. Very, very useful. Good things to utilize. I'm a lot better in not versing anything when I'm doing a demonstration than I am when I'm playing. It's sad. But anyway, that's setting unit groups. Alright, next we have a similar feature, which is if you hold Alt and you press, say, 1, it'll go to show you where group 1 is. If you hold Alt, press 2, show you where group 2 is. And there's group 3 I made. And it zooms to where they are. Alternatively, you can just double tap the group they are, and it'll actually go to where they are anyway. So if I double tap 3, they'll go to group 3. If I double tap 2, go to 2. Double tap 1, go to 1. And that's, of course, whatever number you group them to. But that's that. Alright, next we have adding units to a selection. So, say I have group 2 and I want to add somebody to group 2. If you hold shift and then you left click on another unit, you can add them to that group without having to deselect anything else. Because if you try, of course, normally it won't work unless you hold shift. So that's how you do that, and then I could of course group them into group 1 if I wanted to. Now they're all group 1, hooray for them. Great. So that is of course shift and left click. Something I almost forgot was rotating buildings. If you're about to place a building, if you hold left click before you place it, you can rotate your building, and of course you usually want your front facing outward so that your troops come out towards the enemy and not towards your own base, which doesn't really help defend it much. But sometimes it can be misleading which side is the exit and which is not. Like this flag here on this back of this orc pit is on the back, and the Horadrim Palace is the flag on the front. So sometimes you can't really go by the flag, you just gotta kind of memorize which building is which. But that's how you rotate buildings. And finally, last but not least, we have chat. I cannot show you chat in a single player skirmish, but I will describe to you what it is. If you press enter, then you can talk in global chat. Global chat, of course, goes up here and it talks to everyone in game, and everyone will see that text. And if you hit backspace, backspace will bring up ally chat or team chat, and then only your teammates will see what you type in that chat. So that's very useful. Of course, you are obviously not going to want to talk in global chat if you want to keep something secret from your enemies or keep a strategy with your teammates. So you want to use ally chat for that. So that is that. And I think that's about it. I didn't cover the obvious things like the shortcuts for every unit. Those are things you're going to have to learn yourselves. There are many things, like every building has a shortcut. And if you can learn all these, by all means, go for it. I don't. It's too many letters for me to learn. But, quite frankly, it's very, very useful, and it'll definitely speed up your play if you just say you hit B, and then if you hit R, you can easily build a farm pretty easily. Very quickly, in fact. And that's actually more efficient. But that'll be that. So I hope this has been informative and useful to you guys. Hopefully it'll teach some things to some people who don't know a lot of the keys or features about this game. Hell, I didn't know some of these features until today, so that's it's kind of cool, I guess. But anyway, you'll have to excuse me, because I have a Moomakill to play with. So, I will see you guys next time.